Welcome to the Handcuffed Freedom Podcast. I'm your host, Nate McCowan, and this is a podcast for anyone who has been incarcerated and is now looking to start a new life. Not only start a new life, but create the life of their dreams. We're here with SteveScharboneau, and Steve was incarcerated just days after his 18th birthday. After being released, he became a tradesman and started a family. Following the pain of the 2008 economic recession and with absolutely no educational background, he decided that he wanted to become an attorney. Just last week, the Arizona Supreme Court gave him the stamp of approval to get started practicing law. Besides working in the area of criminal defense, Steve is an avid advocate for reforms in Arizona's criminal justice system. And just to add to that introduction, from what I know of Steve, we are both on the Reframing Justice leaders cohort, and we have these meetings weekly. And in these meetings, there's a lot of tasks that need to be delegated, such as like writing emails or reaching out to organizations, a lot of thankless things that have not a lot of glory. But the first person who will volunteer right away, I'll do that. Steve, across the board, he'll do that. But not only that, in those sort of tasks that help the machinery keep going and change really happen is when he's put up on stage, like at Reframing Justice Day, the second one, he told his story and it was so powerful. And, I just, Steve, we know each other, but I just know that he's such a good-hearted guy, and he really, really is fighting for change. And thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Nate. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here, and also to be a part of Reframing Justice. To be a part of the cohort and the leaders. I've gotten so many great opportunities that I just never would have had being involved with that organization and knowing people like you and being associated with people like you who fight the good fight.
Yeah, it's definitely a fight, especially here in Arizona.
Yeah, that's true.
It's definitely a fight.
Yeah.
But it's not one we will give up on. This is something that, change doesn't always come easy, but it's always worth fighting for. So I have a question for you, Steve. So you said that you had no educational background, yeah. and not only that, you have a felony conviction. So what made you think that you could become an attorney?
So I guess it was a thought process that didn't immediately stick. Being an attorney is something I think I've wanted to do since I was a little kid, and I just, as I got older and as things became real to me, I saw that the reality was that was further and further and further from becoming, something obtainable. And then especially, like you said, after going to prison and having a felony conviction, made it impossible, at least in my mind. So I think what really did it for me was after, going through, as you mentioned, I was a tradesman. I was involved in the HVAC commercial construction industry. I'd bought a home. I had gotten my dream vehicle. I had just had a daughter. And the recession hit the construction industry and crippled me. I mean, absolutely crippled me. I was laid off 3 or 4 times. I'd go back, get a job over here, get a job over there, and it just wasn't sustainable. On top of that, I had issues that were kind of blooming with my daughter's mother. So it was just kind of a mess. And at that time, I had one particular friend who was going through medical school. And I just said, how is this possible? How are you just going to decide to go be a doctor? And they're like, yeah, that's all you do, and to kind of learn the process that, you have to go to school, you have to go to undergraduate school first, then you have to go to graduate school, then you have to get licensed. And before that, I had no idea. I mean, I was completely ignorant to the education process. And I think a lot of people are. coming from the kind of background that I came from. So that just kind of made it real, and made it seem possible. So.
Yeah. No, and you said that you were incarcerated just days after you turned 18. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about that, and tell me about, how you decided to, become an attorney, like from that moment, and how did that come about?
Yeah. So, so like you said, I was young. I didn't, necessarily have a lot of the teachings that maybe some other people did. I think it was in my, someone brought it up not too long ago. It was in my pre-sentence report that at the time I was convicted, I was 18 years old. I was reading at a 6th grade level, apparently, which is not surprising to me. I mean, I didn't finish high school. I didn't get my GED until I was actually in prison. So as soon as I hit the yard in Buckeye, I applied to take the classes in the program, and actually got my GED there. So that's kind of, I guess, the start of it, right? And then, there's that gap. But, you had to start somewhere. So you just kind of start learning about that process, like I was telling you about. And the place for me was right here, Pima Community College. So here's where it started, Tucson. And I think that was good too, a geographical change. I think that really helps a lot of people. A lot of people need that. And just to kind of get away from what you know. And sometimes it's more important to get away from what knows you, right? Whether it's your reputation, whatever it is, to just give yourself a fair shot, a fresh chance. So that's kind of where it started through. And then I went to Pima, went to U of A, tried to figure out how that process works, graduated there. And the rest has been one hell of a struggle. So
yeah, I'm really curious to know, what are some of the challenges that you've faced from when you got out of prison to becoming, now you can practice law in the state of Arizona. I mean, that is such a huge accomplishment, and I can't imagine the hurdles that you've had to jump in order to get to where you are. And, if you can kind of just tell me some of those challenges and how you overcame them.
Yeah, sure. So, as it relates especially to being a convicted felon, and I think, I talk about, I've talked with other people about the insecurity that comes with having a felony conviction on your record. I think, I can't overstate the importance of coming to terms with that. Because if you're going to do something like that, or pretty much anything, I think, but especially to go into sort of what's thought of as a prestigious profession, the closer you get to your goal, the more you feel like you don't belong, right? So when you're in community college, you kind of have your head down a little bit, and then you go to university, and it's everyone's younger than you. Most all of them probably don't have felony convictions. At least that's what you're thinking in your head. And then law school is just like, okay, I'm definitely the only one here that's like me. You know what I mean? So I think that's one of the biggest hurdles as far as that goes, is just grabbing a hold of your self-esteem and getting through. Another thing's disclosure. I mean, you gotta own it. You can't hide from it. Anything. With law school, you have to go through the steps to get to law school. You have to take a test, then get accepted to law school. And then after you're accepted to law school, you have to pass law school, and then you have to do the bar exam, which is absolutely intense. And then there's the dreaded character and fitness exam. And that has been a process, because they're sort of the guardians to who can and cannot practice law.
Wow. Yeah, I can't imagine the challenges that you've faced in going through all of that, but look at where you are now. And I know that you were talking a lot about self-esteem and overcoming that. How for you were you able to switch your mindset from where it was of thinking that you're not good enough to do whatever your passion is, to where you are now, to where you've gone after it and you've accomplished your dreams?
Yeah. Wow. I'm glad you asked that, because I think that's the question. I think that's like the hardest thing to do is overcome that constant cloud of negativity, because there's plenty of negativity, right? I mean, there's negativity everywhere. People are going to tell you can't. People are going to tell you that you shouldn't. People are going to tell you you don't belong, and you're going to feel that too. So I think for me, and I've given this a lot of thought. And I think you have to understand that one of the main motivators, okay, is self-fulfillment, right? I think we all strive to feel self-fulfillment. We want to do good. We want to achieve our goals. And when we do that, we feel good. Our brain releases chemicals that make us feel excellent. So relish in it, right? Every little achievement you make, everything good, there's too much negativity out there. When you do any little thing that's good, grab it, hold on to it, and relish in it. I mean, and put it in your sock drawer. And when you're having a bad day, take it out, look at it, pump yourself up, let you know that you are awesome. And I think that kind of gets you through it. And I can give you examples. I mean, it could be something as big as earning a degree, whether it's your associates, whether it's your bachelor's, putting that on the wall and really relishing it. Or it can be something as little as getting a letter of recommendation. I got one from a professor of mine who I'm still friends with at the U of A. And man, the way he talked about me, it really pumped me up, and he highlighted some of my accomplishments and kind of it made, I was able to look at me through his eyes, right? And for me, that was one of those positive things that I could pull out every once in a while when I was feeling like I didn't belong, or I was feeling like, that I wasn't good enough. And pulling something like that out and reading it really kind of, I don't know, it's that self-familiar, it gives you that boost, Yeah,
absolutely. So, I mean, it kind of just sounds like, part of it is surrounding yourself with people who are going to be positive and help build you up, having that. And then also, one thing that I know that has been real helpful for me in situations is knowing how to look at failure. Because one thing that we accomplish, or that is sure to happen on this road to fulfilling our dreams, is there's going to be some failures in there. There's going to be some failures in there. And I know that there's been points in my life that when failure happened, I associated it with my character and who I am, and it just demotivated me and made me not want to continue on whatever path I was in. And then it's looking at, what is failure? How do you overcome failures? And so I'm curious to see, like, what's your thought process when you reach a point where you have a failure? I put that in quotes. How do you take that?
Yeah, wow, you're hitting all the, really the pillars of the struggle. And it really is. I mean, that what you said is so spot on, and it is, I think, again, one of the hardest things to overcome. I was just talking to Dr. Grace Gomez of AFSC, and we talked about the kind of bootstrap mentality and the lack of focus on mental health and things like that. And people say, well, if you fail, get up and get back at it. It's not, one of my favorite quotes is, it's not, how hard you get hit. It's about how many times you can get hit and keep getting back up. I think that's how it goes. I think I messed it up a little there, but yeah, and the thing is that I think you have to I don't know how else to say it, but you just can't give up. I mean, you just can't. You have to do these things, like I was saying, of those self-fulfillment. I mean, I could give you some examples. When I first started this whole pursuit of education, I didn't want to do the community college thing. I wanted to go to U of A, and they said, no, you can't go. You didn't even graduate high school. You know what I mean? They said you have to go to community college. So that's what I did. I went through that. And then when I was at the U of A, I applied to some of the law schools that I want to get into. And I didn't get into the law schools I wanted to get into for a couple of reasons. So at that point, I was crushed. I mean, when I got that letter, it absolutely crushed me. I thought that all of this was for nothing. And it took a lot to keep going, be persistent. I mean, to just keep going. So I went to a school that I wasn't happy with. And then when I went there, some things happened. I won't get too much into it. But I tried to transfer, and there was something that happened, and I had to stay at that school for a semester that was unnecessary, in my opinion. And again, it seemed like a failure to me, and I basically had to claw my way to graduating from ASU. And I mean, when I say that, I mean, I had to literally, I went outside of ASU and sat there until I could get a meeting with the dean and talk to him and explain what was going on in my specific situation. And it worked out. I established a relationship, and it's the old adage that says, go stand on their desk if you have to, demand someone that will listen to you. So you kind of have to keep pushing. And even after that, then, like I said, you graduate, right? And then here comes the bar exam. What if you fail? Luckily, I passed it. Then the character and fitness. And while all my friends were just getting right through, I had to have a hearing. And I had to dig up all of my past failures, all of everything I've done that is bad. I had to bring it all up. I had to put it all in a report, and I had to submit it to character and fitness. And, some might say that doesn't seem like a failure, but it sure feels like one when you're the one going through it, and you have to go to the hearing. And it's that constant fear of failure too, So, and I hate to promote like I was talking about the whole bootstrap mentality, but there is a lot of that, So I think just being healthy with yourself, keeping your mind healthy, being easy on yourself, but also picking yourself up and keep going. Just keep going.
It's interesting that you mentioned this, because this is kind of a debate that I've had a few times about the bootstrap mentality versus nurturing and changing the environment, right? Yeah. And I think that is what the argument is, because it's two different arguments in reality. And I absolutely believe that the narrative of, just pick yourself up and dust you off, right, is making it so that we don't have institutions or programs in place that will help create a good environment for people to flourish, right? But on the other hand, the internal world, and this is what I call the Tony Robbins approach, right? Because I read a lot of Tony Robbins books, and I read a lot of self-help books. I read a lot of stuff that is all about the attitude that you have with yourself and how do you approach situations. Because this is one thing that I know is no matter how good the environment is, if you mentally aren't ready to take it to the next level, if you're not ready to pick yourself up after each failure, and if you're not ready to go and chase your dreams, right? If you're not ready, it doesn't matter how good the environment is, because you don't have that self-propelling motivation. And so that's why I understand why the bootstraps narrative is harmful in creating systemic change. I 100% agree with that, but I also know how important it is for myself to think and to act and behave as if I will succeed. And so, it's that balance, that balance between the two. And, I'm really glad you brought that up, because that is definitely something I think about a lot. And so I think, just on a personal level, people, whatever helps motivate you and helps you, love yourself more, have more confidence in yourself, believe that you have an amazing future ahead of you, whatever that is, you have to dig into that. And then there's a lot of really good people, really smart people, really compassionate people that are fighting to create a good environment for all of this to happen. But, it's also up to us to make it happen now in this environment.
No, I agree. I mean, I think it's not, one or the other. I think there's synergy between the two. I think they complement each other, those two mentalities. And, it's to say that, like you said, the self-confidence and the, to push yourself. I mean, it's true with athletics, with academia. It's true with, a lot of aspects of life, to where if you want to be good, it's going to hurt. You got to push yourself. It's not going to be easy. If you want to, if it was the old thing, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. And it wouldn't be a big deal. But the thing is that there's a place for that, and I think where it becomes harmful is where you look at someone who's down, and it can't get back up with their mentality, with that self-confidence, because it's lacking, and then look at them and say, hey, what's wrong with you? Why don't you just get up and pull it together?
Right.
I think that's kind of where it's harmful. But if you could help create an environment to get that person going, and then instill,
and then bring that in. Yes.
and then that's why I say I think they have those two mentalities have synergy. They work together really well.
Absolutely. No, I really I like that, because it helped kind of make it even more clear in my mind, how both of those can work together. And I think, like, just like you're saying, where it's harmful is it's that lack of empathy, that lack of compassion, lack of being able to see where someone is at and meet them there, And so, that's great. And one thing that you were talking about that I'd kind of like to touch on is going to school. Now, I know that a lot of my friends that have gotten out, myself, thinking about going to school and all this stuff, I don't even know, if it's possible, how to go about it. Like, how it seems like such a big barrier. And like you said, U of A turned you down. What would you say to someone who's out there that's listening that has a criminal record and wants to go to school? How can they start? What's their first course of action?
Research and talk to people. And I mean, talking to people is research, right? So the reason I emphasize talking to people is because I don't feel it's in many cases, some it's not true, but in many cases, it's not very productive to try to reinvent the wheel. So talk to somebody who's done it. Reach out to me. Reach out to people like Zach and people who have done it, or are going through it, and get a little feedback like that. Another is stay goal oriented. Even if it's not what you end up doing, start with a goal. Start with the goal, because I've seen so many people go into education saying, I'll figure out what I'm going to do later. I'll get this degree and then I'll figure it out later. Well, you might end up down the road not using your degree, owing a ton of money in student loans, and kind of coming out of it with not much. So I think that can be avoided by sort of having a goal. And let me be clear, I think education is good no matter what. Even if you don't use it for your chosen profession, it completely changed my life. I mean, completely changed my life. Just understanding the way the world works. I mean, understanding sciences, mathematics, history, culture, understanding even how to interact with people that you never would have interacted with before. Those things just, I'm not saying it's impossible to find them in other places, but that's where I found it. And it completely changed the human being that I am. So I am a big advocate for people that want to broaden their horizons, become more, well-rounded, and get the most out of life. That's the thing. There's so much out there that we don't know. There's so much out there that, and it's always going to be the case, but the pursuit of education, that's how we obtain that knowledge, and for me, again, about self-fulfillment, that's a self-fulfilling thing for me, is to get more out of life and to understand where we live better. Right.
No, I love everything you're saying there. And I'm curious to know how did all of this lead into advocacy? Because you do a lot of advocacy work, and you do such amazing things that I just kind of want to hear a little bit about how all of this has led to fighting for change in a broken system.
Yeah. The advocacy work is something that has changed my life, and I think will be something I do for the rest of my life. As far as how I got involved in it, I think I was pretty lucky. I basically, while I was in law school, I was working for the Rosenstein Law Group, and had developed a good relationship with my boss, who was involved. I think at the time he was the president of Arizona Attorneys for Criminal Justice. Well, I had this idea to outlaw commercial mugshot websites. So these are companies that are scraping public information, putting it on the internet, and then what they'll do is some of the companies are charging money to extort people to take it down, and then other companies are just putting like ads on there, and they're deceptively put up there, right? So I won't get too lost in it because we could talk about that all day, but they're putting ads up there that say, put a name in here and hit search. Well, that's an actual ad. It's not on their website. Every time somebody clicks on that, they make money. Yeah. And they're getting quite a bit. And the problem that I saw was it was ruining people's lives. I mean, it was cutting out the legs from the second chance. I talked to a ton of people, more people now that I've been involved in it. But anyways, I brought this idea to Craig. I had a ton of research I did. I looked up every other state law. I looked at law review articles. I looked at case law. I looked at, First Amendment doctrine, and kind of really made sure I had a good idea. And then I went to him and he said, let me introduce you to some people. So he introduced me to the legislative committee at the Arizona Attorneys for Criminal Justice, and we ran with it. And through that, that network just webbed off, and that was the beginning of it. But, that bill became law, passed through the House and Senate, and the governor signed it on April Fool's Day, actually, April 1st, 2019. But through the course of that work, I got linked in with people like Marilyn Rodriguez from Creosote Partners, and her partner at the time, Sam, who actually introduced me to Joe. And then Joe introduced me to, the entire group at AFSC. And then, the network just started spreading, and it's continuing to spread. So that's kind of how I got involved.
I love it. And you actually put in place legislation that is now law. You're the one that initiated it. You found the problem, initiated it. It is now a law in Arizona that protects people who have a criminal background from being basically exploited by these predatory companies. And you did that. That's amazing. I'm getting chills talking about it. I didn't even have anything to do with it because that is so, it gives me so much hope. Just like you were talking about, you went into prison when you were just a baby. You were just barely 18. And now you're protecting people who can't necessarily protect themselves and or don't have the knowledge of how to move in these spaces. And one thing I'd like to encourage is anyone out there who is looking for that direction and that purpose, getting into advocacy, using your past, right, as something that you can become an expert in this field. You can become a leader, right, where your voice is driving the conversation just like Steve is doing. And, I know just what I've been involved in, how it has changed my life and given me purpose and given me direction. And it's doing something for other people. It's doing something for something larger than yourself, right? And all those self-help and Tony Robbins and all that stuff that I read, there's always a keystone in all of it, right? Is do something for something bigger than yourself, right? That right there is the cornerstone of having good mental health, having good relationships, and getting out of your own head, right? And start helping other people.
Yeah, it's healthy. It makes you feel great. You know?
Yeah.
It makes you feel great, and you leave an impact.
Yeah.
I mean, it's awesome. And I want to highlight for people out there listening, you know, if you're formerly incarcerated, I mean, the way I got into it was that was the way. If I would have known what I know now, I would have definitely gotten into it much, much earlier. I didn't realize how accessible it actually is. I mean, you just need to reach out. These organizations and these groups are more than happy, most of them, to take you on and put you to work, you know, and get your ideas. I mean, if you're formerly incarcerated, or if you're the loved one that's someone that's incarcerated, you are prime to identify problems and help come up with solutions. I mean, you're primed for it. You're experiencing it. And this is a huge problem. Mass incarceration is a huge problem throughout the entire country, but especially in Arizona. And, you know, if you want to be a part of that solution, I strongly urge you to just reach out, you know, just reach out to groups like AFSC, you know, and a lot of other groups out there. Reach out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, your experience is valuable, and we need your voice in this fight. You know, there's a lot of people that don't understand the prison system or don't understand the problems with it. And it's your story that's going to bring that to life. And so I just want to really emphasize how valuable you and your experience are.
Thanks, Nate.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah. So now, what's for the future for Steve? What's the path forward from here?
Yeah. So, fighting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to. So I haven't gotten my license as of yet, but the Arizona Supreme Court declined to review the committee's recommendation for admission. If any of that makes sense. It didn't to me until I started understanding this about a week ago. But yeah, so that's great news. I'm just waiting to get the bar card, and then I'm lined up to start practicing in the area of criminal defense. I'm really, really looking forward to that, and just expanding that network to work in the area of advocacy, and meet more people and make more connections. And yeah, I mean, professionally, you know, there's that. And then, of course, there's with the family. We got the girlfriend and my little girl. So, and we're doing great, and things are really going good. So.
That's awesome, man. It gives me so much hope to see, you know, a lot of people that we have on the show. I mean, they're doing amazing things. And I think one of the things that we get from prison, and, you know, we could get into the psychology of it and all that, but people who have been to prison, I mean, you get out and you really are grateful for the opportunities that, even if they're limited, right? And you're willing to hustle and to work and to really make your dreams come true. And I know a lot of it was, for me, is I felt like I had to prove something, right? And whatever the motivator is, I mean, I just see that so many people who have been through these sort of experiences, I mean, they tend to be the top level performers in what they do.
Yeah, the hustle's there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you talk about experiences. One thing I'll mention too is, you know, you talk about the future and experiences. Just to throw it out there, I've been working on a book and trying to put that together too. And it's a work in progress. No end in sight. But one of the things I wish I would have done, and I'll throw it out there, this is for anybody really, is I wish I would have kept a journal. I wish I would have wrote some of this stuff down, because I'm going back in my memory, but it is not as real and as rich as it would have been if I would have wrote down even a sentence to kind of strike that passion that was, you know, or that sadness that I felt on that day, or whatever it is. And I keep a journal now. So I don't write it in every day, but I do. When something happens, I write it down. So I want to emphasize, you know.
It's funny that you say that, because I was one of those guys who actually did keep a journal, and I kept a journal for the first couple years. And then if anyone knows my story, I got kind of lost in the weeds there for a while, and I didn't keep a journal for a lot of it. But every now and then I would check in when an especially emotional thing would happen, and I would jot it down and kind of make a little mile marker. But I have literally 2 property boxes full of writing. And I'm in the process of compiling that into some sort of compilation of writing. But yeah, no, I would love to read what you got, and then, maybe we could help each other on this. And if anyone out there has some writings or wants to work on a book, I love that kind of stuff. So feel free to reach out. And Steve, I was going to ask is, if people want to contact you, can we drop your email or is there a way to contact you?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll drop my email address, or you can put it on in
the show notes. We'll put it in the show notes.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, and yeah, feel free to reach out with questions about anything. Because like I said before, especially if you're interested in any of the same areas, whether it be advocacy or maybe education or a graduate degree, anything like that, if I can help at all, I mean, that's what I really want to do. And talking to someone who's done it can be super valuable. So I would be honored to help anyone who thinks that my advice could be helpful.
I love it. All right, Steve, is there any parting words of wisdom? Any last thing that you want to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess it's just a reiteration. Don't be so hard on yourself. Be honest with yourself, but don't be so hard on yourself. It's an art form that not a lot of people have, especially people who haven't gone through some of the stuff that we're talking about. To take something that's broken and make it beautiful. I mean, that is an art. And people who go through difficult times have that opportunity. So seize it and make it awesome.
I love it. All right, everyone. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Nate.
Thank you for sticking around to the end. If you'd like to contact us, our email address is handcuffed2freedom@gmail.com. You can check out some of our videos on YouTube, search Handcuffed to Freedom. And if you'd like to support our work, you can at patreon.com. That's patreon.com/handcuffed2 with a TO freedom. If you have any questions, please reach out. If you need some help, reach out. If you're bored, reach out. Just reach out. We're here. We ain't going nowhere.